Well, folks, it's that time of year again. It's ballot season, and you know what that means appeals, approvals, votes, and so on. The statewide measure is in town. It's time for lawmaking. This year, Texas legislators pulled out 14 different amendments into the pool, the biggest since 2007, mind you. And out of all of them, the biggest and most contentious out of all of them is Proposition 4. You might be asking, what is Proposition 4? Well, Proposition 4 is a four-part amendment that focuses on the property taxes and educational funding of Texas. The amendment promises to place a limit on how much businesses are allowed to raise their property taxes by. It also increases the property tax exemption for homeowners, as Texas already has a pretty high property tax already, and assists in government appraisal elections. The proposed bill would change how the taxation basis affects both property owners and businesses. A change like that would have to cost a lot of money in return, and that it does. It costs approximately $18 billion, 5.3 in lawmakers' cuts, and 12.7 billion in school districts. Something like that would actually give Texas to do something with its state surplus of $33 billion. Yeah, that's right. You heard that right. $33 billion in the state surplus. If you divide that and gave it back to every single Texan in Texas, that would be equivalent to $1,088 per Texan, writes the Texas Tribune. The surplus is a machination and a result of both the booming industry and economy of Texas, the taxpayers' money, and finally, an odd one out of them all, COVID-19. If passed, Proposition 4, as stated earlier, would put a limit on how much businesses are able to raise their taxes by, a maximum of 20% per year. In addition to the business limit, the opposition will also raise the homeowner tax exemption from $40,000 to $100,000, which would in turn lower bills for property owners. This would be a continuation from 2022's Prop 1, which increased property tax exemption from $25,000 to $40,000. Alongside that, it would also allow for state legislature, when given a county of 75,000, the ability to appoint 3 government legislatures for that county to act as appraisal process approvals, as these are hired by legislature themselves. Before this, people would have been hired straight into the job. And finally, it would allow for elderly people to take part in the tax exemption. Now, even though Proposition 4 has a lot of support behind it, mainly the Republican Party and Governor Greg Abbott pushing for it into the ballot measure, some parties and people, however, have a different idea about it and are concerned about what it will bring for school budget and renters' pay. The Texas State Teachers Association writes, quote, "If Proposition 4 passes, it will wipe out the dedication to education and property tax relief," end quote. Not just that, but Proposition 4 would also affect renters and their contribution to tax relief. Even though Proposition 4 affects homeowners, it says nothing about how it affects renters. This makes it so that even though renters make up a third of the housing in Texas and pay 1/4 of school property taxes with their own money, they don't have access to the tax reliefs that homeowners have. With all that being said, with how it will affect taxation exemption for homeowners, how it limits businesses, and how it will give state legislators the ability to appoint members for appraisal in state government. But with the idea of how it will affect school board budgets and how it would affect renters. It's tough to say. But we'll just have to wait and see when the state measure on November 7th concludes. Thank you so much for watching, folks.